Okay, I'd now like to welcome George from Sumo Logic, who got prepared a long time ago. Are your slides here, sir? You got them?
My slides are already there.
Okay, you need the clicker. There you are.
Sure, thank you.
Best of luck.
Hello. Hi, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, so first things first, I'm not in sales. I'm not in marketing. I'm CSO and SVP of IT for a modern day SaaS solution called Sumo Logic. A lot of this conversation is going to be internal about how we protect our data globally. So we're currently rolled out across multiple AWS zones, everywhere from Core Ireland, Frankfurt, all through Asia, all through North America as well too. And my argument, my thesis today is going to be to challenge you, the crowd, that cloud is much more secure than on-premise. I've been with Sumo Logic for almost 9 years. So again, multi-tenant, 100% in the cloud. And currently today, we're seeing a lot of issues everywhere else across the industry. And I would argue that a lot of it is because companies haven't modernized their stack. So let's get into the data. The first thing in the agenda is going to be, I'm going to talk about my team a little bit and why that's so important, combining security and IT. The second thing will be on-premise versus cloud, some of the advantages and disadvantages. The third thing will be the shared responsibility model when you are moving to cloud to have a better understanding of what your part is. And then finally, the last one will be key takeaways. So my team, this is my favorite thing to talk about. I actually own real estate as well too. So think about offices, facilities, along with IT, along with security and compliance. I guess the question would be why? When you bring together all of these disparate units and make them one team, you get a better workforce synergy. How many people in the audience are in security? How many of you are in IT? So usually those two things are very separate, and there's a lot of friction between the two. Now by bringing them together, you have one common modern workforce. So let's get to the cloud piece. So on-premise, hard shell, soft center, and everyone likes to think that that gooiness inside is protected and safe, when in reality, you're supporting and maintaining infrastructure that's not part of your core competency. So whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're in retail, whether you're in tech, healthcare, why is it that you would support infrastructure anymore? It makes only sense to be able to move things out to the public cloud today and start splitting that responsibility with another cloud service provider. Now, cloud service providers have had issues, there's no questions in the past, but nothing like what we've seen on-premise over the last few years. Just in the United States, over the last couple of weeks alone, we've had MGM, Caesars Palace, Clorox, Sony, all of these companies ransomware. Some paid the price, others didn't. But the one common theme I saw across all of them is that they all are on older technology tool stacks, not focused on their core competency. So what is the shared responsibility model? And this is something that I like to show across all three. When it comes to infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or SaaS, a lot of the main responsibility that you will have as a consumer is IAM. So identification access management is probably the most important thing that you could put into place today. As you can see, like the way this is measured out, on infrastructure, you are responsible for database all the way up. So if you're in GCP or Microsoft or Amazon, everything above the Amazon machine image is going to be your responsibility. When it comes to platform as a service, the application side will be your responsibility. When it comes to SaaS, it's all of it is theirs except for identity management. So that is one of the most key factors you can have, along with logs. So I sat here and listened to the last presentation, and the funny part about the last one was the whole presentation they talked about logs, nonstop. Why is that? Most people think, well, logs aren't sexy anymore. But the minute that something goes wrong in your environment, whether it's from a development use case, security, or operational use case, the first place you go is logs. So let's take a look at a modern day tool stack. So these are all of the different security use cases you see across the top, everything from access management all the way to SOAR, and then the different modern tool sets of logs that you're going to be able to collect to have that extreme visibility and automation going across the side. Now, it took us the better part of 9 years to get this, but if I'm sitting in the audience today and I'm looking at these data sources and these logs, I'm asking myself, does my tool sets, does my architecture look like this? And if it doesn't, it should. It should be somewhat close to that, regardless of the vendors that we have here. So let's start with access management. So collecting a lightweight amount of logs like CloudTrail that we saw before, VPC flow logs, mixing that in with things like Okta for identity and access management is critical to be able to support an infrastructure today. I think in the past, what we used to look at was if my friend Craig was logging in from London and logging in from California at the same time. That's interesting, but what about if there's a VPN in between, and where's the MFA push going? That's where it becomes more interesting, is being able to take all of these different data sources and then correlating those in one area to be able to solve problems. Other things that you'll see too, as well as vulnerability management. When you take a look there, you see two different types of bug bounty programs. One with HackerOne, one with BugCrowd. Bug bounties have been absolutely key to modern workforces in the cloud. Why? Because we want people to attack our environment to make sure that when you partner with us, when you're a customer of Sumo Logic, that you're protected. And so the more ethical hacking you can do against a platform, the better off you are. Now, the great part about that is HackerOne's also a customer as well, too. And so when you take a look across the stack, vulnerability management's another one. When you start seeing things like Tenable.io, Sneak running across your platform as a service option with leveraging Kubernetes and Docker. This is exactly what a modern day architecture should look like. And then, of course, all of that information being consumed into one common SaaS platform at scale in the cloud. We're talking about processing exabytes of data a day. Exabytes. I never thought I'd say that before. But having that multi-tenant architecture is what allows you to do this. Moving over to your right-hand side of the screen, regulatory compliance. And so as you can see, we're very highly regulated globally. Everything from PCI or credit card data to healthcare data. Obviously, as well, too, things like NIS2, which I just heard in the last presentation coming up. We can shorten the life cycle to finding and detecting those vulnerabilities, and then you can read it off my shirt, fix things faster. I had to say things because I don't know how things work out in Europe, and I didn't want my language to be cut out, but you guys can understand the middle one for sure. And so being able to speed up this automation to detect problems and then fix them is extremely critical. And so as we continue to chat here, I guess another question I'll throw out to the crowd. Does this look familiar? Does this look like your tool stack? If it does, raise your hand. If it doesn't, and then keep it down. I see some people nodding, right? A little bit? How many people are in AWS currently today, GCP or Azure? Thank you, there we go. But just a few of you. So as you're sitting here looking at this and starting to think about consuming all of these different log sets coming in, what is it you think that's keeping people really from moving to the cloud whenever we open it up for questions here? Is it fear? Is it moving the unknown data types into the cloud and maybe not understanding how your data is protected? Is it not being able to get to some of these sources fast enough? Because this is the only way that you're going to be able to scale a modern day security shop in my mind. And again, it may not be about the products that you're seeing here, but maybe more of the capabilities that they provide to you today. So a great example that I'll give you across these as well too are things like Zscaler and bringing in those logs for VPN and be able to compare those back to some of your other vulnerability management type stuff like ZAP, right? When you're doing static and dynamic code scanning as well too. So the last piece of this is when I was coming out here, and by the way, thank you for having me. It's always great to be in Germany. I started looking at how many breaches had taken place over the course of the last year. And the numbers are high. And every time I see this, it affects me tremendously because I'm wondering what people are actually doing to protect their data today. Is it lack of skill set? Is it lack of tools? Is it lack of funding? But what is it that's causing all of these breaches out there today? So the first thing that I'm going to say is accelerate your business and your business goals by moving to cloud and SaaS-based solutions. That's the first place to start. It's a no-brainer. Many, many years ago, when I first got started on this journey, I did security at VMware, and it all started off with email. I cannot believe that at one time, I used to manage an on-premise Exchange infrastructure. How boring, how tough of a task to do. And then once we ended up moving out to the cloud in GDocs, that entire infrastructure went away. The second thing is to become familiar with security techniques in the shared responsibility model. AWS alone has had, yes, many breaches over the years, but most of them have been because of S3 data leakage problems. The reason why that took place is because people didn't do server-side, client-side encryption. They didn't turn on logging and monitoring. And then finally, on the back end of it as well, too, they didn't set up S3 properly to be able to protect themselves against this data exposure. And then finally, the last thing is going to be the security stack solutions. So have a modern-day stack that works well in the cloud, that allows you to move out agilely, have the visibility you need with the remediation-type capabilities. And so what I'd love to do now is I'd love to be able to open it up to questions. Again, I'm not in sales. I'm not in marketing. I run this shop. I've been there for 9 years. I got a pretty good-sized team across IT, real estate, security, and compliance. So any questions that you may have for me. And if you don't have questions for me, make sure you go out to booth 542, where we can answer more questions and show you demos. So any questions? Just one question. Somebody. Comments, feedback, challenge on the cloud. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Can we get a microphone over here, or excuse me? Can we get a microphone for questions? Thank you. Thanks. And thank you. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, the question is, how does it work? Does it collect the log files from the different providers, or does it take the log files from AWS, from the stack below?
Great question. So what it does is it takes logs from all of these different capabilities you see. So Okta logs, Slack logs, Jira logs, and it combines them into one location. So it's a log analytics SIM tool at the end of the day that also does observability as well, too. And so, yeah, from all those different dissipated data sources. Now, the reason why I came over to Sumo, and I'm so glad you're asking this, is because before I was at VMware and I was a Splunk user, right? And I loved Splunk at the time, but then Splunk became very expensive, and it wasn't as API-driven to collect cloud information like I needed it to. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go help start a company that competes against Splunk and drives things more from an API level and gives me a security solution. Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Feedback? All right. Well, with that, I'm going to be at booth 542. So please come out, get a demo of our solution, take a look. And again, at scale is one of the main things I want to say. When you're processing exabytes of data a day, collecting logs from AWS and all these different data sources, that's one of the things that sets us apart the most. And so when you're looking for a SIM solution, logging analytics solution, or observability, please think of Sumo Logic first. That last presentation couldn't have set me up better because all they talked about were logs, 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 logs. Well, come get them in one location, get that visibility you need at scale. Thank you so much for having me in Germany. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, George.
Thank you.